Private Clark pulled out his phone thinking he was just capturing a moment. He was actually documenting the biggest scandal in military history. From which city around the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories of justice and courage, please subscribe to Quiet Tales Studio for more incredible true stories. What nobody knew that morning at Fort Ridgewood was that Sergeant Scarlett Hayes hadn't come here by accident. She had requested this transfer specifically, and Colonel Victor Cross was about to discover why. The morning fog clung to Fort Ridgewood like a death shroud, obscuring the razor wire that crowned the perimeter fence. Sergeant Scarlett Hayes stood at perfect attention in the third row, her flame-red hair pulled back in regulation style, emerald eyes fixed straight ahead. 4 tours of duty had taught her to become stone when necessary, invisible when required. Colonel Victor Cross moved down the formation with predatory slowness, his boots striking concrete with metronomic precision. The base had fallen silent except for those footsteps and the occasional nervous swallow from newer recruits. Cross's inspection rituals were legendary at Fort Ridgewood, and not in ways that inspired pride. But what Cross didn't know was that Scarlett carried something in her locker that would destroy him. Documents, names, dates, evidence of something so horrific that 9 soldiers had taken their own lives to escape it. Pathetic, Cross muttered, stopping before a trembling private. You call that a proper stance, Williams? No, sir. I mean, yes, sir, the private stammered. Cross's weathered face twisted into something between a smile and a snarl. Which is it, soldier? Before Williams could answer, Cross had moved on, his attention now fixed on Scarlett. He paused, eyes narrowing as they traced the combat badges on her uniform. Something about her composure irritated him instantly. Well, Sergeant Hayes, our new transfer. He circled her like a shark. Quite the collection of ribbons. Task Force Crimson, correct? Operation Nightfall. A flash of genuine emotion crossed Scarlett's face. So brief only those watching closely would notice. Behind her eyes, fragments of memory, gunfire, radio chatter, the weight of a civilian child in her arms. Yes, sir. 7 good men lost, Cross said, emphasizing each word. 7. Because someone couldn't follow orders. What Cross didn't know was that Scarlett's disobedience had saved 31 civilians. Children mostly. The military had buried that part of the report. Just like they'd buried everything else about Cross. Lieutenant Kevin Nash approached with a clipboard. Sir, we should proceed with training. Cross waved him off. I'm having a conversation with our decorated sergeant. He leaned closer to Scarlett, disobeying direct orders. Should have been court-martialed. Fallout for tactical training in 15. Cross finally barked. As recruits dispersed, he pointed at Scarlett. You. I'll be watching you especially. The training facility echoed with shouts and equipment clatter as recruits ran through urban combat simulation. Scarlett moved with practiced efficiency, outpacing her group with precision that spoke of real combat experience. From the observation platform, Cross watched through narrowed eyes. She's good, Lieutenant Nash remarked. She's reckless, Cross countered. Watch how she thinks she knows better than protocol. What neither officer knew was that Dr. Grace Miller, the base medical officer, had been documenting Cross's psychological abuse for months. 17 suicide attempts, 9 successful, all under Cross's command. When Scarlett's team reached the final objective, they encountered unexpected resistance not mentioned in the briefing. As team leader, she assessed and motioned for her team to fall back. Sir, she called to Cross. Southwest approach is heavily defended. Request permission to flank east. Cross's face hardened. Denied. Proceed as instructed. Scarlett hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir. The exercise failed. Simulated casualties mounted. That's why we follow orders, recruits, Cross announced as the buzzer sounded. Creativity gets people killed, But Scarlett knew something Cross didn't. Her real mission at Fort Ridgewood wasn't training. She was working with military investigators, gathering evidence of systematic abuse. This failed exercise was just another piece of the puzzle. The mess hall fell silent as Cross entered, walking directly to where Scarlett sat with her meal tray. "I did some digging on your record, Sergeant Hayes." His voice echoed through the quiet hall. "Operation Nightfall. 7 soldiers lost. You were team leader." Scarlett's hands tightened around her tray, but her face remained composed. "Tell everyone," Cross continued, voice rising, "how you abandoned your post, how you disobeyed direct orders." What Cross was about to do next would be recorded by Private Mason Clark, who had quietly pulled out his phone. But Clark wasn't just any recruit. His older brother had served under Cross 3 years ago. His brother had been one of the 9 successful suicides. Scarlett stood, intending to leave rather than escalate. "With respect, sir, I need to return to training." Something in her calm response pushed Cross over the edge. His face flushed dark with rage, and he grabbed her by the collar. "You don't belong here," he hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're not fit to wear that uniform." He began dragging her toward the restrooms. Recruits followed uncertainly, none brave enough to intervene. Private Clark raised his phone, recording from between 2 taller recruits. The restroom tiles were cold under fluorescent lights. Cross shoved Scarlett toward the stalls as stunned recruits crowded the doorway. "Maybe what you need is to wash away that insubordination." He forced her toward a toilet, gripping her collar, pressing against her neck. "You think your combat experience makes you special?" Cross's voice echoed off tiles. "Let's see how special you feel now." With violent motion, he shoved Scarlett's head down into the toilet water. What happened next would change everything, because Scarlett Hayes wasn't just any soldier. She was a decorated combat veteran with specialized training in close-quarters combat. Underwater, Scarlett's eyes remained open, not panicked, not struggling, calculating. Cross pulled her up after several seconds, water streaming down her face, soaking her uniform. Something shifted in her expression. A decision made. In one fluid motion that seemed almost choreographed, Scarlett executed a countermove. She broke his grip, pivoted, used his momentum to spin him around. Before anyone could react, she had Cross pinned against the wall, her forearm across his chest, her other hand applying pressure to a nerve point that completely immobilized his right arm. She had him neutralized without causing injury. The room fell into stunned silence. "Operation Nightfall," Scarlett said, her voice calm and clear, water still dripping from her red hair. "I disobeyed the order to abandon civilians in a conflict zone. My team volunteered to stay. 4 of us made it out with 31 civilians. Children mostly." She released him and stepped back to attention. "I accept whatever disciplinary action you deem appropriate, sir." Cross's face contorted with rage and humiliation. "Everyone out," he shouted. "Now! Nash, get their names. Everyone here is on report." As recruits filed out, Clark stopped recording and quickly sent the video to multiple contacts with a simple message. "This needs to be seen." What nobody knew was that Clark hadn't just sent it to friends. He'd sent it to his local news station, 3 military oversight organizations, and a viral content account with 2 million followers. By evening, the video had erupted beyond the base. Military message boards first, then Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The image of the soaking wet red-haired sergeant standing at perfect attention after neutralizing her abusive superior struck a chord that transcended military circles. Dr. Grace Miller knocked on Scarlett's barracks door just after midnight. "It's everywhere," she said, showing Scarlett her tablet. "And it's not just the video. Other soldiers are coming forward about Cross. Former recruits' families." Scarlett sat on her bunk, still in uniform though she changed into dry clothes hours ago. "This wasn't how it was supposed to happen," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" Scarlett reached under her mattress and pulled out a worn folder. Inside, meticulously documented cases, dates, names, incidents, reports signed by witnesses who had since been transferred or discharged. 17 suicide attempts under Cross's command in 3 years. 9 successful. Dr. Miller stared with new understanding. "That's why you requested the transfer. You were investigating him. The system protected him. Every official complaint disappeared." Scarlett looked at the folder. "I needed to be here to document it properly, to gather evidence that couldn't be buried. You never expected him to humiliate you publicly." "No," Scarlett admitted, "but maybe it was the only way the truth would finally surface." What neither woman knew was that in Washington, D.C., 3 congressional offices had received copies of the video within the last hour. And the Secretary of Defense was already awake, making phone calls. General Patricia Caldwell watched the viral video for the 4th time, her expression unreadable. On another screen, news reports played silently. Headlines about systematic abuse at Fort Ridgewood scrolled endlessly. "Get me Sergeant Hayes," she finally said to her aide, "and contact Dr. Miller immediately." Morning light streamed through General Caldwell's office windows. Scarlett stood at attention, prepared for the worst. Dr. Miller stood beside her. "Sergeant Hayes, you understand you're facing serious charges? Assaulting a superior officer." "Yes, ma'am." Caldwell tapped her tablet. The infamous video played again. "Did you know you were being recorded?" "No, ma'am." "Did you plan this confrontation?" Scarlett paused. "I requested transfer to document abuse patterns, ma'am, not to create confrontation." Caldwell opened her drawer, removing the folder Scarlett had shown Dr. Miller. "This was delivered to my office this morning." The general spread documents across her desk. 17 suicide attempts, 9 deaths, dozens of documented psychological abuse cases. "I've been treating the aftermath for years," Dr. Miller stepped forward. "My reports were consistently ignored or reclassified." "You could have brought this directly to me," Caldwell said. "Previous reports were buried, ma'am," Scarlett replied. "I needed irrefutable evidence, something that couldn't be denied." Caldwell pressed her desk intercom. "Send them in." The door opened. A group entered, some in uniform, others civilian. Family members holding photographs of loved ones. Former recruits with haunted eyes, each connected to Cross's reign of psychological terror. "These people have been outside my office since dawn," Caldwell said, "each with a story." One woman stepped forward, clutching a framed photograph. "My son, Private First Class Danny Wells. He served under Colonel Cross last year. He took his life 4 months after leaving Fort Ridgewood." Others began sharing similar stories. Careers destroyed, lives damaged, voices silenced. Caldwell raised her hand, gently stopping the testimonies. "Colonel Cross has been relieved of command pending investigation." She turned to Scarlett. "This doesn't excuse your actions, but context matters. Dr. Miller has provided medical evidence corroborating these accounts." "What happens now, ma'am?" "The investigation is expanding to other bases. Similar patterns have emerged." Caldwell closed the folder. "As for you, Sergeant, you're being reassigned pending review." "I understand, ma'am." "However," Caldwell continued, "there will also be a commendation. The Soldier's Medal for your work in Operation Nightfall, which has been re-evaluated." Scarlett blinked, the only sign of surprise she allowed herself. "I don't understand, ma'am." "We received statements from the surviving civilians. Without your team's decision to stay, they would have been massacred." Caldwell's expression softened slightly. "Sometimes orders are wrong, Sergeant. The hard part is knowing when." As the meeting concluded, Lieutenant Nash waited outside. His usual swagger had been replaced by uncertainty. "Sergeant Hayes," he said. "A moment, please." Dr. Miller glanced between them. "I'll meet you at the barracks." Nash shifted uncomfortably once alone. "The recruits want to know if you'll return to training." "That's not my decision, Lieutenant. I served under Cross for 4 years," Nash said suddenly. "I saw things. Did nothing. Worse than nothing. I enabled him." Scarlett studied him, seeing conflict behind his eyes. "I'd like to make different choices now." Nash extended a data pad. "The recruits drafted new training protocols based on your suggestions. They're requesting your input. I'm not in command here." "No, but you have something more valuable. Respect." Nash looked down. Something Cross never understood. What Nash didn't mention was that he'd already submitted a formal request to transfer to the Military Oversight Committee, volunteering to help investigate other bases with similar problems. Outside the administration building, reporters had gathered at the base entrance. News of Cross's removal had attracted national attention. "There's a back exit," Nash offered. "No," Scarlett replied. "No more hiding." She walked toward the main gate, cameras turning in her direction. "Sergeant Hayes, can you comment on the allegations against Colonel Cross?" Scarlett stopped, weighing words carefully. "The military is investigating serious concerns. I trust in that process. The video shows you defending yourself after being assaulted. Do you consider yourself a whistleblower?" "I consider myself a soldier. One who believes in protecting those who cannot protect themselves," another reporter called out. Was this isolated or indicative of systemic problems? Before Scarlett could answer, General Caldwell appeared. "This is now an official military investigation. There will be a formal briefing tomorrow." Reporters reluctantly backed away. "Thank you, ma'am," Scarlett said quietly. "Don't thank me yet. The real storm is just beginning. There are powerful people who supported Cross's methods. I'm not afraid of a fight, General." Caldwell gave her a measured look. "I know. That's what worries me." Throughout the following days, more evidence emerged. Dr. Miller released anonymous medical records showing injury patterns consistent with physical abuse. Former recruits came forward with testimonies of psychological torment disguised as training. The video had cracked a dam. Now the full flood poured through point 1 week after the incident. Scarlett sat alone in the mess hall when Private Clark approached. "May I join you, Sergeant?" She nodded. He sat nervously. "I wanted to apologize for recording without permission. It wasn't meant to go public like that." "But you sent it to multiple people," Scarlett pointed out. Clark looked down. "My older brother served under Cross 3 years ago. He was one of the ones who attempted suicide. He survived, but he's never been the same." He looked up at her. "When I saw what the colonel did and how you stood up to him, I thought maybe it could finally make a difference. It has, but changes like this come with costs. Worth it though, right?" Before she could answer, her tablet chimed. General Caldwell, requesting immediate presence. Scarlett found the general in the communications room watching multiple news feeds. "It's gone national," Caldwell said, pointing to screens. Each channel showed variations. Military reform demanded. Viral video exposes abuse. Fort Ridgewood scandal. The defense secretary is coming tomorrow. There's talk of congressional hearings. "I never intended this level of disruption, ma'am. You intended to expose truth. Once that happens, consequences have their own momentum." What Caldwell didn't mention was that she'd received calls from 12 other base commanders in the past 24 hours. Similar patterns were emerging everywhere. Cross wasn't an isolated case. He was part of a systemic problem that went deeper than anyone had imagined. That night, unable to sleep, Scarlett walked the perimeter fence. The same fog that shrouded the base on her first morning had returned, softening harsh outlines of training grounds. She stopped at a bench overlooking the parade ground, surprised to find Dr. Miller already there. Couldn't sleep either? Scarlett sat. Too much happening. You've started something bigger than all of us, Dr. Miller said. I've received calls from medical officers at other bases. They're coming forward with similar reports. I only wanted to stop Cross. That's the thing about courage. It's contagious. What Dr. Miller had learned that evening was staggering. The problem wasn't limited to Fort Ridgewood. Medical officers from 17 different bases had contacted her in the past 48 hours. The pattern was everywhere. Psychological abuse disguised as tough training, suicide rates covered up, complaints systematically buried. Morning brought clear skies and the defense secretary's helicopter. Scarlett stood with General Caldwell, Dr. Miller, and Lieutenant Nash as part of the welcoming party. As the secretary approached, Scarlett was surprised to see two former commanders from Task Force Crimson accompanying him. Colonel Jennifer Martinez, her former commanding officer, greeted her with a salute. Sergeant Hayes. Still fighting the good fight, I see. Ma'am, I didn't expect to see you here. The secretary wanted a comprehensive review. That includes your actions during Operation Nightfall. Martinez lowered her voice. Your team saved those civilians at great cost. It's time that sacrifice was properly acknowledged. The defense secretary approached, extending his hand to General Caldwell before turning to Scarlett. Sergeant Hayes, I've reviewed your file extensively. What happened here represents serious leadership failure. Not yours, but at multiple levels that allowed this situation to develop. Yes, sir. There will be formal hearings next week in Washington. I'll need you there, along with Dr. Miller and anyone else with first-hand knowledge. As they moved toward the administration building, Scarlett noticed a crowd at the base entrance. Not reporters this time, but civilians, families of soldiers who had suffered under Cross, standing in silent support. Among them, she recognized the woman holding Private Wells's photograph. The woman nodded, a gesture of quiet gratitude that said more than words. What Scarlett didn't know was that this crowd represented families from multiple bases. Word had spread through military family networks faster than official channels. They had traveled from across the country to be here, to finally have their voices heard. 1 month later, Scarlett walked among white headstones at Arlington National Cemetery, her dress uniform impeccable in soft morning light. She stopped before a row of 7 markers, her team from Operation Nightfall. She stood silent, then knelt to place a small stone on each grave. We made the right choice, she said softly. They live because of you. Footsteps on grass made her turn. General Caldwell approached in formal attire. The investigation is expanding to 15 bases, Caldwell said without preamble. Similar patterns, systemic issues. Cross is facing charges. Multiple witnesses coming forward. Caldwell stood beside her, looking at the graves. You're being awarded the medal tomorrow. There will be media. I didn't do this for medals. No, you did it for them. She gestured to the graves. And for those still serving. The congressional hearing had lasted 5 grueling days. Scarlett testified for 8 hours, detailing not only the incident with Cross, but the broader abuse pattern she'd documented. Dr. Miller presented medical evidence, while former recruits and families gave emotional testimony about toxic leadership consequences. Cross appeared on the final day, defiant at first, insisting his methods produced superior soldiers. But when confronted with suicide statistics, his composure cracked. War is not kind, he argued. Training shouldn't be either. The committee chair, a retired general, leaned forward. There's a difference, Colonel, between rigorous training and cruelty. One builds soldiers, the other breaks humans. The hearing concluded with unanimous recommendations for system-wide reforms. Independent oversight committees, enhanced reporting mechanisms, mandatory psychological evaluations for command positions. What emerged from the investigation was shocking even to seasoned military officials. The problem extended to 23 bases across 4 countries. Over 200 confirmed cases of abuse. 67 suicides directly linked to toxic leadership. The following morning, Scarlett stood at attention on a Pentagon ceremonial stage. Rows of seats held military personnel, government officials, and families affected by the Cross investigation. In the front row sat her fallen teammates' parents, brought specially for the ceremony. The defense secretary spoke about moral courage and the duty to protect not just the nation, but those who serve it. General Caldwell detailed Operation Nightfall, how Scarlett's team chose to stay when ordered to withdraw, saving 31 civilians at the cost of 7 soldiers' lives. Today we recognize not just a single act of bravery, the secretary said, but a commitment to justice spanning years. When Scarlett stepped forward to receive the soldier's medal, she felt the weight of everything, from that foggy morning on the parade ground to this moment of recognition. She accepted the medal not for herself, but for her team, for recruits who would now train under humane leadership, for families who had lost loved ones to a broken system. After the ceremony, Mrs. Wells approached Scarlett. "My son would have been 25 next month. After he died, I wanted someone to blame. I focused all my anger on Cross. He bears responsibility," Scarlett said. "Yes, but so does the system that protected him." Mrs. Wells touched the medal now pinned to Scarlett's chest. "Danny wrote about you after you arrived at Ridgewood. He said there was a new sergeant who actually seemed to care." Scarlett felt her throat tighten. "I wish I could have helped him sooner." "You're helping him now. Every recruit who won't suffer what he did. That's his legacy too." 2 months later, Scarlett returned to Fort Ridgewood to collect belongings. The base looked different, not physically, but atmospherically. Recruits moved with purpose rather than fear. Instructors gave clear directives without intimidation. Nash met her at the barracks. His bearing completely transformed from the uncertain officer who had once enabled abuse. "The recruits have been asking when you'll return." "I won't be. I'm heading to Fort Benning next week. Instructor position in the new leadership program." They passed the bathroom where the confrontation happened. Someone had placed a small plaque beside the door. "Integrity above rank." "That was Private Clark's idea," Nash explained. "The general approved it." Scarlett studied the simple plaque. "It's a start. More than that. It's a reminder." Nash straightened. "I owe you an apology. I stood by while Cross abused his position. I convinced myself it was necessary for training." He extended his hand. "Thank you for having the courage I lacked." Her final stop was Dr. Miller's office. The doctor was packing, preparing for her transfer to Benning. "Ready for our new assignment?" "I'm not sure anyone's ever ready to reshape an institution," Scarlett replied honestly. "If anyone can do it, it's you. You've already started." On her way out, Scarlett passed the training field where recruits ran drills. She paused to watch, noting differences in how exercises were conducted. Intensity remained, but instruction had shifted from intimidation to education, from breaking spirits to building skills. Private Clark noticed her and called time out, jogging over with other recruits. "We heard you're leaving, Sergeant." "New assignment," she confirmed. "Will you come back? Maybe give a talk about Operation Nightfall someday?" She looked at young faces before her, seeing the military's future. "Keep holding the line, Private. Not just against external threats, but internal ones too." As Scarlett drove away from Fort Ridgewood for the final time, she glanced in her rearview mirror. The base that had once symbolized toxic leadership was transforming into something else. A place where courage was measured not by aggression, but by integrity. She thought of her fallen teammates, of Private Wells, of all who had suffered under the old system. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. Change had come at great cost, but it had come. The road stretched ahead, leading toward her new role, her new responsibility. She would carry the lessons of Fort Ridgewood, both harsh and hopeful. Most importantly, she would carry the knowledge that sometimes a single act of resistance could spark a movement. Dawn was breaking as Scarlett reached the highway. First light of a new day spreading across the horizon. Behind her lay the past with its pain and injustice. Ahead lay the future she had helped create. One built on respect rather than fear, protection rather than persecution. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was better. And for now, that was enough. Have you ever known someone who never asked for recognition, but deserved more than anyone? Someone whose courage changed everything around them? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Quiet Tales Studio for more incredible stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.